Listen, I'm going to start off making some pizza dough. As I tried to show you last week. You know, people say any clown can make pizza dough, and that's true. That's true. I lived with a clown in Paris for a couple of months, and he was actually a circus clown. He was a clown for the circus, and I showed him how to make pizza dough, and after a couple of days he was quite proficient at it. Yeah. Now, for a basic pizza dough, what I like to use is plain flour. Usually, when I have time, I make my own flour because I believe it gives it that much more authenticity. I have a little millinery out in one of the outhouses that we make the flour there. We actually grow our own wheat. A little bit of land out behind the millinery, which is behind the garden, and we have wheat there growing tomato. But due to the fact that most of the staff are off for the Christmas holidays, I haven't had time. You know, I've been rushing and racing. But it's that time of year when everybody's rushing and racing. So most people, they just put flour, water, yeast, maybe a bit of sugar. And I like to add a lot of other ingredients. And for starters, what I like to put in is some cracked black pepper. Very important to give it that kind of spicy kind of a feel to it, you know. And now, not a lot of people know this, but another ingredient that I'm very partial to is oregano. I mean, there are people that cook pizzas in Ireland and Britain, and they actually make the pizzas without putting oregano in them. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's like having a screwdriver without the vodka. So I like to mix that in there. And recently, I have to turn this pizza dough from an ordinary pizza dough to an extraordinary pizza dough. I started adding some dillisk, you know, the seaweed again, the super seafood seaweed. It's quite remarkable. Put the dillisk and I chop it up like that. I usually have a blender to chop the seaweed, but he's on holidays as well. Mexican chap by the name of Manuel. And you know, it's very interesting cooking here. I enjoy cooking and talking about the cooking process. But sometimes when I'm out, you know, I get these idiots asking me about recipes and menus when I'm out. They say, what's the worst time is during cocktail hour. I usually have cocktail hour between 8 and 10 o'clock, Monday to Friday. Saturday, Sunday between 8 and 10:30. And then when you get these idiots asking about cocktails, asking about recipes and this and that, I said, please, would you? It reminds me of when I lived in Hampstead Heath in London for a couple of years. This is where I did some of my early training with the MI5. I had a nice little apartment. It was just a couple of miles away from Chelsea. And we were at a party one evening. Yes, and I was telling a few stories about, you know, my college days and stuff. And other stories that you can't even speak about them now, because if I was to put them on the YouTube or whatever, they would probably be censored by the censorship board, you know. But I was telling a few stories one night at a party, and there was quite a few people at the party. There was about maybe 60 or 70. They were all having a drink and a few of them chatting. Most of them were just listening to me telling my stories. So then I got a tap on the shoulder. I said, excuse me? There was this man, this guy in a big suit, and he had a tie on, and he said, would you like to go upstairs? I said, I'm sorry, my friend, I like the ladies. He said, no, it's not that. he said, there's some special guests upstairs, and one of them was down passing through a few minutes ago. They heard you telling your stories, and they were wondering would you like to go up and tell them a few stories? And I said, well, I suppose, why not? I said, whatever, you know. So what I'm looking for now is a bit of salt. I don't usually trying to cut down on the salt, but again, due to the fact that most of my staff are away for the Christmas vacation, I have to put it in. So they brought me upstairs, and I said, oh yes, it was a lot fancier room. The room upstairs was well laid out. Everybody, they were sitting around like, it was kind of like a fine dining room with these big expansive kind of chairs, leather chairs, and there was a few couches and some of these beds that you fold out, and there was people there, and they were drinking and smoking and doing quite a bit of stuff. And then would you like to sit over here? So he introduced me then. He said, this is James. I said, good evening, James. And I recognized the face. It was James Hunt, the racing driver. And Ian Burton, the cricketer. And this is Anthony Hopkins, the actor. Yeah. I said, good evening, good evening. And it was full of celebrities. And then this gentleman came in. There was two more guys with suits beside him. And he came over and he said, good evening. I said, yes, because I'd had a few beers on me this day. I said, your face is very familiar, you're on the television. And the other guy that was behind me, he tapped me and said, that's Prince Charles. I said, oh my God, I'm very sorry, Charlie. He said, no, don't worry about it, I'm just here to have a bit of fun. So I was telling them some stories. We had quite a good time. It went on till all hours of the morning. I can't remember what time we finished up. But just as I said, I need to go home. And Charles said, stay on. So I said, no, I've got some things to deal with, top secret. He said, of course, yes. He said, would you like to come over and visit Mum someday? I said, you mean, yes, it's the Queen. I said, of course, that would be very nice. So a week later I was over at Buckingham Palace. I said, for fuck's sake, I've come a long way since my days in the west of Ireland, out selling ice creams and doing all sorts of things. So we were there, we had a couple of cocktails with the Queen herself, and we were having a chat, and I was telling her about my travels and stuff. And they said, well, you wait for lunch. She said, we have the caterers coming in for lunch to bring us some smoked salmon and some other petit devers or whatever the fuck you call them. And I said, yes, of course, I'll wait for lunch. I'd had a few cocktails at this stage, and I'd had a late night the night before. So they said, you wait for lunch. Anyway, the same day, what happened? It was about 1987. There's a crazy Irishman. He'd been captured outside. He had a gun on him. He was trying to break into Buckingham Palace to shoot the Queen. And there was mayhem. Secret Service agents all over the place. And I said, well, do you need any help, Charles? He said, no, we've got our usual security details looking after it. I said, okay. Because I told him at the party that I was an international man of mystery and also an international espionage agent. And he was quite surprised. He thought I was just, someone that went around telling stories. Tall tales, as he called them. And, yes, they said, well, the next thing he got a call on him. One of the first cell phones in England. It was bigger. It was like a wine bottle. He said, hello, Charles speaking. Yes, the caterer can't come now. The caterer, the place is on lockdown for 4 hours. So Charles said to me, he said, you won't believe it, Sylvester. He said, the place is on lockdown. The caterers can't even get in. I said, well, you have a kitchen here? He said, of course. I said, do you have any food in it? He said, yes. He said, what are you proposing? I said, well, I have some culinary experience. Catering, He said, really? He said, oh, did you study? I said, no, I opened a little restaurant when I was about 14, just kind of a weekend job, you know. Small little cafe with a quite discerning clientele. And he said, how did you learn how to cook at that? I said, well, I was cooking since I was about 8. He said, by the time I was 11, I was a bit of a whiz in the kitchen. He said, my God. So I went down and I said, what would you like? He said, well, what's your specialty? I said, well, pizzas. So he said, yes. So I made them some pizzas and calzones, and I used some mozzarella and some mature cheddar, and they even had some of the Queen's Own cheeses that they made from the Queen's Own cows and the Queen's Own goats. The goat's cheese, I mixed it all up and put in some smoked salmon on one of them, and I put in some goose, and they had all sorts of exotic meats. I think I put kangaroo in one of them. And anyway, the Queen, she said, I've never really been a great fan of pizza. Nice, well, have a nipple anyway, Your Majesty. She said, I'll try anything. Once. So she took a bite of it, and there was silence. There was only about 5 or 6 of us, and a couple of the security guys. And she looked up to the heavens. She took a deep breath. And she said, fuck me pink. Sylvester, that's fantastic. Absolutely fucking amazing. I said, well, thank you, Your Majesty, thank you. So that was it when I was over there. So I was quite a regular in the palace. I actually had my own little pass. I was going there for quite a while. And it helped no end when I was dealing with MI5, when I mentioned them, if I was having any problems, security issues with them in relation to things going on between Interpol and the FBI, I could say, listen, you want me to call up Her Majesty and have a word with her about it? There we are, there. Don't bother, don't even go there, you know. People would say that to me. So, I have the flour and the yeast. It's all looking good now. And, the seaweed and the pepper and all that.